welcome everyone to Loading Architects Learning, a podcast where we dive into the world of architecture and design, navigating career paths in the area of AI. And this is Adeline.
Hi, I'm an architect working in Hong Kong. I do have a startup on the side. And yeah, we're very happy to be here. And this is Elena.
Hi everyone, I'm Elena. I'm an architecture student year 4 in my last year of uni, and I'm currently exchanging in Europe. Really happy to be here, and our episode for today, the theme would be skill sets, right? Like everybody needs a skill set to do something in a professional field. And for architecture students, we are trained to give a lot of soft skills as hard skills in the uni. And then we probably need some of them, but probably doesn't need all of them in the career. But we are trained and given experiences to learn those skills at uni. So today we're going to discuss about all those kind of skill sets we need.
Great. Yes. So,
okay, do you want to dive into soft skills or hard skills first?
Yeah. So first of all, for those who are new to this podcast, if this is the first one you're picking up, so this is us, we're just riffing off, and this podcast is us sharing views on architectural education, industry, and entrepreneurship. And yeah, so today we're going to talk about skills, and I think I'm going to dive into soft skills because personally, I actually find the soft skills that I've picked up in architecture school to be more useful. So soft skills including collaborating with other classmates. And this requires a lot of people skills because architects or students, architectural students, a lot of them have a lot of, let's say, it's ego. And it's not a bad thing, but it's true that a lot of people go into architecture school wanting to become a big, designer. Therefore, working together sometimes can be challenging. So that's the first one that I can think of. And then probably the second one would be presentation skills, which becomes marketing skills when you actually come out to work. So presentation skills, I don't know about you, Elena, but when I was presenting for my work, I used to not get to the point, and I used to do a lot of ums and ahs and not being very sure and being quite shy. No, actually, I was never shy, but I would be nervous. And at the end, I, found a routine, and I had my own notes, a strategy to remember my notes and a strategy to remember key points. I think that it's a very good skill to have, especially now I'm doing business and I'm doing pitches, and it's really helpful actually. And it's not even one of the KPIs of architecture education.
Yeah, I feel like I'm still practicing my presentations from time to time. I'm still getting onto the phase where I will like in the beginning of a presentation, I'll get somehow a bit nervous, but then I don't know how you present, but personally for me, I just can't remember the entire script to have a script to present. So for myself, like I usually only have a bullet points, and then with those kind of bullet points, I will go down from one point to another, and the presentation will getting from a bit nervous to more relaxed phases, but still I'm practicing how to articulate the concepts, how to form the structure of a presentation so that it can deliver what I want to deliver to the audience.
Yeah, me too. I never have a fully written up script on the day, but before the actual presentation, I would actually write out my entire script. And then from that entire script, I would highlight bullet points. And then on the day, I would just have notes with those bullet points. And since I've once upon a time written the entire script before, when I look at the bullet points, I can remember the script. So, which means when I'm actually presenting, I won't be saying the actual words that I wrote, but the meaning would be there, and I would make my points across.
But that would be more natural.
Yeah, exactly. That would be more natural. How do you start with your points? Like, do you like to zoom in, like starting from the general idea and then zoom in like to a smaller scale?
I would say yes. And I'm like talking about particularly how to present a project. So we have to, in the beginning, to give the audience a great impression of what this project is about. So it's from a broader point of view. And then once you dive into the small details, so they will have something in mind that what this project is and how those kind of small points is related and is serving for your project. So it's starting from I always have a structure of having large points first, and then dive into small details, and then conclude with the large points again.
Right. Yeah. You know, something that's quite interesting that I like to share. So I've had the architectural education and the experience of like how you were describing the way we present and etc. And then I've had instances where I've actually taken pitch training. Like I went to a class where I was trained to pitch. And I would say that those are very similar experiences. Like I think for a business pitch, it would end with a call for action because, well, it also depends if we are pitching to, are you pitching to collaborators? Are you pitching to investors? If you're pitching to investors, you're asking for a call for action. Basically, how much you want from them, and in return, the number of shares that they might be able to have, etc. So, yeah, and it would often start with who we are presenting to, like who is the product or service aimed at, and then moving towards why we want to do it, or we can also start with why, it depends. And in a business pitch, sometimes if you're given the space to do so, you can start with something quite creative, like a guerrilla tactic, like something that is a little shocking. But I think in architecture pitches or architecture presentations, first of all, the people that you're presenting to, at least in school, are not the users. For example, if you're designing a housing estate, in the presentation, you're not presenting to the residents. You're presenting to your teachers. And that is kind of the difference that I see. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and
yeah,
you're presenting
to you versus someone else, who look from a client point of view.
Exactly. So when we're presenting to our teachers or critics, they already know the terminology that we're using. They already understand when we say, oh, this is a spatial move and blah blah, like dominant space, subservient space. They get all of that, right? But when we're presenting to the actual users of the project, we actually don't present it in that way. Like I presented to layman clients before, and the way we present it is very different. Because from their point of view, they're most of the time thinking about feasibility development feasibility, like how much of their land can be profitable if they happen to be a real estate developer. Or if it's like a private house client, they would want to understand whether or not you have gotten their idea of what they want for their private house. or maybe they don't know what they want and they want you to suggest. So you can't really use fancy words like, oh, this is going to be, I don't know what's some of the jargon that we say, like this is a, like a very nice space, and then you have this contrast, you can't really say something
like you have the transitional place and it has the blooming light shining in.
Exactly.
It's a bit different.
Exactly. Like
what their interests are.
Yeah, exactly. The clients want to know what's the housing mix, how many people do you think is going to pass by, what's the transportation like, and what's the circulation. Well, we do talk about circulation in school, but I think in a real project, in a real presentation to a client, it's quite different in that sense. So yeah, that I would say the soft skills can be picked up from school, but they need to be adapted and transferred to specific use cases, whether if it's an architecture company or in a business setting.
I see. I'm actually interested in, you said you taught the pitch classes. So then how would they teach you how to do a presentation? Like, do they give you certain exercises that can be used for architecture students as well?
Right. So when I went to that pitch training, it was not related to architecture at all. It was for startup founders. And it was really funny because they gave us a lot of random words, and we were put into groups. And we were put into groups where we don't know the other person. So for the first exercise was that we had 5 minutes to get to know the person who was sitting next to us. And then we had to present that person as though we've known them forever. So that was quite fun. Also, if you have social anxiety, that is the moment to get over it, because you need to tune up your extroverted side for that exercise. After that, I think we listened to the trainer telling us about how the flow of a pitch can go or should go sometimes. Like I was saying, it should start with like what and why, how, perhaps like how do you think like your project's going to help your clients and why they should listen to you. Who are you serving? Who are you talking to? Different age groups would react differently to different things, right? So it has to be specific. And then at the end, a call for action, like you've said all those things now, and like you've given someone a 10-minute monologue. Normally it's shorter than that, like maybe 5 is the maximum period of time before they zone out. Then what on earth do you want them to do, right? Then you have to say, okay, it's either buy my product or invest in me, etc. So yeah, so that was the lecturing part. And then we actually had a bit of role play to do. We were given a lot of random words together. I think random words like Boy Scout and hair gel, something like that. And so we have like we would lucky draw a different clientele and also lucky draw a product. So we have no control in what they are. So for example, it would be like nuns and bikinis. So then now you have to sell bikinis to nuns. So that's how it works.
And that's how they train you to say something that makes no sense, but you have to make it really
exactly. Yeah. So you have to kind of dig out the pain points, right? I think this is very important, the pain points of your clients, and to find out what is valuable for them. What are the features of the product and service, and what are the KPIs?
Yeah, that's similar to architecture, where you have some kind of issues, problems in architecture scale or the urban scale.
Yeah.
And you need to find some proposals to target those kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what about some of the hard skills that you picked up so far?
Actually, before diving into the hard skills, I would like to talk a bit about collaboration between groups.
Oh yes,
because collaboration is so important as to become an architect. like with on your own, you can do some really fancy designs, but like what about the practicality? Like how are you supposed to let it be practical? So this needs collaboration between different people's different professions. So for example, like we need civil engineers to help us decide like the details of the building, and we need to collaborate with other like interior designers and also some other architects as well. So I feel like back at school we are somehow given a huge amount of group work, not necessarily in the design course, but in other courses we have loads of group works that you have to get used to collaboration with your teammates, and then someone needs to take up the leadership. So that was the point where we exercise to be collaborative with other people. And I feel like that is really important because the power of one person is not that huge enough compared to the collaborative power.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah, but sometimes it gets really tricky to collaborate with some others if you don't find the working method is suitable for both of you. Then do you have any tips to tackle those kind of difficulties in collaboration where you have like diverging into two different concepts or ideas? How would you?
Right. So first of all, I think one thing I didn't realize when I was in architecture school is that there are many different kinds of architects. When you come out to work, we are now so far away from the Renaissance man, right, as architects, which means a lot of our works are kind of chopped up in different ways. Anyway, long story short, there are project architects and there are design architects. Design architects very much take up the concept stage, and project architects take up the lateral stage, like actually producing drawings. Some architects do the full suite, but that's getting more and more rare. And also project architects a lot of times are managing the project. So what I didn't know when I was in architecture school is that there were these options, there were these choices. To be honest, I think the more I work now, the more I see that even though I love design, I think I'm actually passionate about project management. So now coming back to the collaboration part, when you're in school, you're working with 5 different people on a project. Actually, some of you guys might be more interested in managing the project, or managing as in actually making sure, like coordinating the design. And that is actually really important. And some of you guys are interested in the design concept. And I feel in the real world, there is a coordination and collaboration between architects, of course, within a team as well. For example, if I'm working on this part of the like zone A and you're working at zone B, and eventually we have to like come together with our designs and make sure that interfacing part works together. So I would say that would be an important collaboration. But what is even more important is the collaboration between architects and other consultants, like architects and your interior designers, architects and the engineers who's going to tell you, sorry, your glass, this area here is massive. If you want your glass to be in one piece, it's going to be really expensive for your clients. And also the piling of the foundation cannot support your design. So you need to minimize the design. So what do you do when that happens, right? So I feel like in architecture school, we have lots of experiences collaborating with other architects, but not enough with other
professionals.
Yeah, with other students from other industries. So this is what I see. Yeah, so 2 things. One is that actually architects project architects and design architects are doing very different things in their works, and they need to learn how to collaborate as well. They need to collaborate as well. So between design architects, they need to collaborate. Between project architects and design architects, they need to collaborate. Between the architects and the engineers and other kinds of consultants, they need to collaborate. So yeah, I would say in a real project, you have so many different stakeholders that it is, almost essential. It is a skill to be able to have that kind of people skills to collaborate. Yeah. By the way, project architects are very often the people, might also be the people doing a bit of marketing as well. Like they might be the people doing the presentation. It depends on the company structure, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, collaboration is so important that you have to make sure your project is right on the track.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I found out also when one is in the managing role, that person actually has a lot of authority in how the design looks like, because that person is also working with the commercial team and a commercial team of the clients or the procurement team of the contractor. And that's when, the money is actually going to control the outcome. And a project architect is, I feel, the person who is managing this to make sure there's still integrity and authenticity in the design, but at the same time, complying to regulation A and B within budget, because that's so important. If it's not within budget, it won't get built. And so there's no point in designing something really nice but doesn't get built unless it's a student project. And yeah, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. Right. Okay, then talking to the hard skills, I feel like there's like a bunch of hard skills on the list. So first of all, we have some kind of drawing, hand drawing, modeling skills that is related to handcraft. Then we have software skills where we use a lot of Rhinos, AutoCAD, renderings, and probably some coding skill as well. And what else can you think of?
Well, you're mentioning almost all of them now, and actually in my head I'm just thinking which one of those will not be I hate to say it, but which ones of those will still be relevant in 10 years time, let's say. Let's put it that way. What I'm trying to avoid to say is which ones of those will be replaced by AI. Let me say which ones of those will still be relevant in 10 years time. How about that? Yeah. Because for example, like Rhino and Enscape, okay, I think Rhino is actually going to stick around for a bit, because even for myself, if I have an idea in my head, I would like to draw it in 3D. I would like to build a 3D just to have a look at it, like some kind of massing, which I can then throw to Photoshop or render in AI, whatever. I know maybe like the generation before mine still prefers to sketch by hand, and I admire their skill in sketching by hand. I never was able to pick up that skill. I don't know about you, but I never really was the kind of person to put thoughts on a paper in a sketch. I can't force myself to, but it's not natural to me. That's what I mean. It's actually more natural for me to pick up my mouse and to start drawing some, first like lay out a grid in Rhino and then build some 3D. So I actually think that is going to stick around. But the rendering stuff like Enscape or CAD, I'm not really sure if they're going to be relevant in 10 years' time.
I would say like for stepping into the era of AI, we somehow still need to learn how to use the AutoCAD and then know like what kind of like original skills architects have, what kind of like workflow they use to do the work in the past, but then the proportion of how much we use AI and how much we use the Rhino and AutoCAD is uncertain for now.
Yeah. I don't know, to be honest, because if we think about all the revelations we've had in the past, not in architecture, but say, like now we just jump on a car and we travel. We use vehicles, right? We never look back and say, okay, first let's learn horse riding and then
Oh, that's
take the
true.
car. Or I don't know how to function a fax machine.
Mhm.
We just use computers directly, emails, right? So I don't
Right.
know how much of the process will actually be eliminated to the point where we don't even need to know certain
Mhm.
skills anymore because those skills are obsolete, those hard skills, which is something that's quite funny is that soft skills, we've mentioned about soft skills, and I think we probably both agree that the soft skills will still be very relevant,
Yeah.
regardless of AI, or even more relevant now in some ways.
Mhm.
But some of the hard skills that we're learning in uni just may not be relevant anymore, or rather, it's a big question mark over that.
It will be an era of transition, which means we, like, in the case that I said, we still need to know some of the AutoCAD. Is that
Mm,
because the technology of AI is not that ready yet, so we are still in the phase of transitioning between
mm,
different like using different hard skills. So I would say like in the transitional phase, you still need to have the knowledge of both sides. And then probably in the future, there is an era that we can dump all those kind of previous, very
mm.
traditional skills.
Yeah,
But there will be a transitional phase.
yeah. Okay, so I just thought of a skill that I can't really put a finger on it. Like I don't know whether it can be considered as a soft skill or a hard skill, which is the architect's intuition, meaning how you would know
Mhm.
something is a good design or not. I mean,
I would
some,
say that's something in between.
yeah, okay. Yeah, I think so too. That's why I can't really categorize it. I think it's,
Yeah, because
yeah, it just comes with experience, I suppose, and also people telling you what's good and what's bad, and you also thinking about what is good design, what's bad design. It's yeah, I don't know how to put it. I don't think it's a hard skill really. But it's not really a soft skill. I don't
would you
know.
say the knowledge of architecture, the knowledge of like say history of architecture and the approaches of architectural design, is it are those kind of hard skills
You mean the
or
knowledge
soft
and
skills? The knowledge
mm,
itself.
gosh, that's hard. It's hard to say. What do you think?
Because for me, it's the knowledge itself that I obtain and accumulated is more of, I feel like it's more of the hard skill that um I am conscious, I'm a I'm am aware of like how much I have acquired.
Mm,
Um and with those kind of accumulation of architectural knowledge, they will have some better intuition.
mm,
Like it comes hand by hand. But then the intuition of design, I can't really say it's a hard skill because
yeah.
like it's not even a very rational thing,
Mm,
right?
yeah, I know what you mean. Also, it's so subjective. Is it subjective or
Yeah,
objective? It's subjective, right? Like,
it is
really,
subjective. It is.
yeah. Like, what I think is good, you might think it's bad. What we
Uh-huh.
think is good in our culture might be bad in someone else's culture, right? So yeah, I think it's almost
But
like
what is a
art. Mm,
good intuition then? Is it a good
mm,
intuition based on your community, like our community, where people will say, "Oh, you really have a really good design intuition." Is that because like most of the people agrees to the design we have?
Yeah, it could be.
That is very
Yes. That being said, I think most people would agree that certain designs are good. And yeah, and I think it's but there will always be a minority of people who would think differently. But I think it's almost like if the majority of people think it is a good design, it can be considered as a good design. Yeah, what I mean, because the design, the product is built for people. And if most people think it's good, then it is good. But there will always be some people who think, no, that's bad. It's not like maths, which is always going to be
right.
It's either you're right or wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
But talking about how I don't know how I acquired design intuition. Do you think there's a way to exercise and to practice the design intuition?
Well, I've also been in a critic seat before. I've had the honor, pleasure to be, listening to some student presentations. And I thought about that as well. Like when I'm giving a comment, first of all, I never say it's bad or I never say it's good. Actually, that's perhaps slightly painful for a student. But I would always say what I appreciate, what kind of aspects I appreciate, and how I can see it perform better in terms of functionality, as well as whether or not something makes sense. It's almost like a common sense. Like, how do you come up with a common sense? I don't even know. But for some reason, when I look at projects, I know exactly how to comment on it. I know exactly how it can perhaps be improved in certain ways, whether on a social aspect or whether it's on a functionality aspect or whether it is respecting a context. I think if something is respecting context, it's always good design. Well, often always good design. If it's ignoring the context, either it's doing it on purpose, like, making a statement, which is, sometimes fine if you want to. But most of the time that's just ignoring the site and going ahead with someone's arrogance, or something that they want to do, which is sometimes selfish. So those would probably can be categorized as bad design.
But do you feel like it is proportional to how the number of architectural design you have analyzed or read? Is it proportional to those knowledges you have? Or
I think there are people who I've come across who did not have many years of study, or they're very young, but they still have an extremely good sense of design. And I think it comes with their own life experience outside of school, their exposure to the world, their understanding of their environments, and sometimes, yes, and sometimes talent. I do believe in that. I think there are people who are born with a sense of talent, and they're born with a sense of design skills. They're born with these design skills where they just have style. And I've come across people, like, even when I was a year one student, I've had classmates who were just so talented. Well, they've been taking art classes for many years that I know, and they've been, educated abroad and been to many places, even at the age of 17, 18. And I think all of those had built their sense altogether, which means perhaps architecture school is just one way to enhance those, but they've already had that foundation from the beginning.
And I thought of another thing might help to build design intuition is the sympathy you have like the sympathy, you have to understanding the demand of the community, the demand of your users, and that might, if someone has really a high sense of sympathy, then they know exactly what is the pinpoint. They know what the users need.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot.
Yeah. I think having a sense of empathy is very relevant today because it's something that AI can't really do for us. Like the AI won't be able to empathize how it's like to live in a certain place. Well, unless it's being trained with some certain data. But I think this is something that's very human. And I think it should stay human in the sense. Yeah. That being said, there's still a lot of AIs being trained right now to be virtual nurses and for mental support. So who knows, maybe it can also take over this part of empathy. But yes, for sure, as an architect, I think having that sense of empathy is very necessary. It would make one a good architect for sure. Yeah. Right. So,
right.
I'm having a lot of fun with this. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this podcast, and I was just we were just saying before we started recording that we can't believe how fast the time has passed. So, right, I think next week, or next episode rather, we'd be talking about the practicality and pragmatism of our education and architecture, and also it kind of links back to our first episode where we talk about, last episode where we talk about expectations as well. So, right, so I think we will, that's it for this episode.
Yeah, I think we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.